It was when he got to college that I had to start speaking up, not just with everyone around us, but with him and
Mhm.
teach him how to self-advocate,
Yeah.
be able to say, I've got these limitations, but I also have these strengths. If you could do these things for me, we're going to get along just great.
Welcome to Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast. I'm Brigitte Shipman. I'm your host. And today I am honored to welcome Kathleen Somers to our podcast as a mom who spent over 2 decades raising a son with a disability that is invisible to most. Kathleen brings deep insight, vulnerability, and truth to a journey many of us know well. Her new memoir explores what it really means to love, support autistic children. She talks about supporting our kids, her son, while navigating guilt, fear, frustration, and also being able to let go of those expectations. Now, if you've ever wrestled with the emotional weight of parenting a neurodivergent child, you need to listen. Stay tuned because this is going to be an excellent conversation that you don't want to miss. Welcome, Kathleen, to Mother's Guide.
Thank you, Bridget. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate you asking me to be here.
Oh, my honor. The message that you're about to share is really important. And as a fellow veteran mom, I think your message is so important, not only to our autism community, but just to the world in general, because I think it's it's hard to explain our journey, right? It's just hard. So I think you're going to do a great job. But before we get into all that, I'd like for you to tell our listeners a little bit more about you and your son.
So, I am a freelance graphic designer and copywriter. I live in the Philadelphia area. I'm an avid cyclist, a dog lover, and I am the mother of a now 25-year-old son who has high functioning autism. So, the reason I wrote this memoir is because I went about it all wrong. I was living in denial for a long time. I hid from the truth. I did nothing to improve our situation. And I felt an obligation to share that journey and all of those mistakes and all of that awakening with other parents so that, if they step inside my shoes for 5 minutes, perhaps they'll learn from my mistakes and learn the lessons a lot sooner than I did because I've been doing a lot of catch up.
Yeah, I love that. So paying it forward and with love, right?
Absolutely.
Because it can, if we allow it, really make our life sad and full of grief and all the things that comes with initial diagnosis. Which brings me to ask you, okay, your son now is 25 and thriving and all the good things that all of us hope for, right? Uh,
Mhm.
what was it like? Let's go back a little bit. Your initial reaction to this diagnosis of autism.
So in 2007, my son Jack was formally diagnosed by a pediatric neurologist with Asperger's syndrome.
Mm,
So most people know that the term Asperger's syndrome is no longer used because it was rolled into autism spectrum disorder. Um, in 2007, people were not talking about autism. They definitely were not talking about Asperger's syndrome. We had never heard those words. There was no social media, no Facebook groups.
mhm,
The resources that exist today just weren't there. We had enlisted the help of tons of therapists. None of them had any understanding of what was going on with our son or how to help us.
mhm,
So, simultaneously with receiving this diagnosis, he was undergoing evaluations at school. All of his teachers, the psychologist, the nurse, they were all in agreement. He needed accommodations. He was failing to meet goals he should have been meeting. He was struggling in the classroom setting. He was very disruptive, aggressive with the other children. And they said, yeah, he definitely needs help. So we worked together and developed an IEP. which stuck with him all the way up through his college years. They were also in agreement about something else. They said, we don't think he has Asperger's syndrome. They dismissed his diagnosis. And these were the people that were seeing him day after day. I mean, these people saw him almost as much as we did, and we trusted them. So here's a doctor we don't know saying X, and here are the people we trust saying Y. So what do you think we did? We swept his diagnosis right under the rug. We figured whatever this thing is, we've never heard of it. We know nothing about it. Eventually, he'll grow out of it.
Yeah.
And he was just about 7 at the time. We knew he was a handful, but thankfully, we found organized sports. He got immersed in basketball, soccer, became obsessed with baseball. And it was evident pretty quickly that he was gifted athletically. And we thought, this is great. It gave him an outlet for his energy. He was working with other kids, playing with other kids in a team setting. It kept him contained, and it gave us the illusion that our days were moving along normally. He went off to a regular school every day, attended regular classes. At the end of the day, he came home and we went to practice or a game or sometimes both. And we thought, okay, we can manage this. We don't, whatever this thing is, it'll be okay. But it wasn't okay.
Mm.
As he got older, circumstances changed, but the challenges remained. And you get into middle school, and their personalities are forming, they're choosing their friends. Jack had no understanding of what friendship was about. He thought any kid that would come over and play with him for an afternoon, even when that kid did not want to come back, he thought that kid was his best friend. He would say,
Mhm.
yeah, Mom, we're really close. And I'm like, really, Jack? Yeah, so he had no understanding of that. And then weird things started to happen physically. This kid spent every moment of his downtime trying to become the best baseball player he could be. He was in the batting cages, he was taking lessons. One day he walked out on the field and had no idea how to hold the bat or swing the bat or throw a ball. And his coach came to us and said, what's going on? And we didn't have an answer. When a coach comes to you 9 or 10 times asking the same question, suddenly you're asking yourself, like, what's going on here?
Mhm.
We had no idea that autism would rob him of gross motor skills. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't talk about it. We had ignored it. So we started walking this very fine line between, do you say something to a coach, a teacher, a prospective employer? If you do, what do you say? Because you really
Mm.
don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or do you not say anything and hope the wheels don't fall off the bus?
Hmm.
So we were living life in a very reactive fashion, just trying to mitigate every bad situation as it happened versus being proactive and seeking out strategies to prevent those bad situations from happening in the first place. So it was, not going to pretend that raising a nonverbal child or raising a high functioning child is as difficult as raising a nonverbal one. I
Hmm.
know that it's not, but being high functioning does come with its own set of challenges, and there's no one size fits all solution to those challenges. And
Hmm.
when your days appear to move along normally, it's really easy to just sweep it all under the rug and ignore it and hope it will go away, which is
Hmm.
absolutely the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, I think anything under the autism umbrella has its own challenges and struggles. And I have, friends whose children are severely nonverbal, severely autism, as far as that goes on the spectrum. And one thing I've learned is that that's why I like to work with moms. When you just talk to the mom, no matter what's going on, your heart's broken and you just connect. And I know that like Joseph is doing well now. And I know that even I still sometimes have guilt because he is doing well. But then I think, now, wait a second. No. So I just kind of go, okay, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to think about how can I help moms, which is what you're doing. But I think your message is really important. For example, if you met Joseph, somebody, I get this all the time. Wow, I would never know. I would never know Joseph
Right.
was autistic. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, uh-huh, just because he is doing well. So I think this conversation is important because I do think high functioning autism does get swept under, and it's hard to detect, and it's even harder to understand. They're just considered weird or whatever, right?
Right.
Socially weird. Like, wow, why did he say that? Why is he obsessing about that?
Right.
Why does he interrupt? I mean, I can go on and on and on. So I love that we're having this conversation, and I want to know. So you've shared some of those, the diagnosis, the challenges that came later with gross motor skills. By the way, I've never heard of that. I've
Yeah.
been around the block and I have never heard of that.
We used to cringe, my ex-husband, Jack's father, and I used to cringe our way through every basketball game because, and this is crazy, he would score 25 points a game, which is, in an average like middle school game, the points are like 50 total.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
scoring 25 of them. But his arms would be all over the place and he would throw the ball from his chest as opposed to like
yeah.
doing it properly. And it was because he couldn't, he just couldn't get the coordination down right. He didn't learn how to ride a bike until he was 9 or 10 years old because he just couldn't get the motion down.
Yeah, which makes sense now, that we're talking about it. Yeah, of course, you don't know what you don't know, but I wish I would have known more about the eye and the brain connection because I feel like Joseph too, his depth perception was way off.
Wow.
Like, and it still is to some degree.
Wow.
So I think so any mom out there or teacher or whomever's listening, I did learn that if there is depth perception issues, have your eyes checked. And I don't mean for vision, I mean the eye and the brain connection.
Right,
But
exactly.
that's another episode. I am so excited to talk about your book, Barely Visible. This is right on track with what we're sharing. And I love Barely Invisible, mothering a son through his misunderstood autism story, right behind the title, Barely Visible. What does that mean to you as a parent? Where does
There's
this
mul-
title come?
there's multiple meanings to the title. Prior to having Jack, I was pregnant and I knew from day one that something was wrong, despite, my doctor's assurance that it was a viable pregnancy.
Mm.
At 5.5 months along during a routine ultrasound, they said, "Oh, there's something wrong." I underwent test after test, and it wasn't until I was 7 months pregnant that they figured out it was a very rare duplication of chromosome 9p, and it was worst case scenario. If our baby were to survive, she would have no quality of life whatsoever. And I think if we had had if we had had her and she survived, her disability would have been readily apparent to the world. People would have looked at us with sympathy and understanding because they would be able to see that there were problems. And so I feel like I honestly, truly, in my heart, believe that we were not meant to go down that path because we were meant to have this challenge of a child whose disability you can't see. I mean, on the surface, Jack looks like every other young adult just starting out in their life in the real world. He's physically beautiful. He's working on a modeling career. So he's physically beautiful. He's got a college degree. He's got a job. He drives a car. He still plays sports. On the surface, he looks like everyone else, and no one takes the time to understand him because they can't see that they can't see that he's not like other people. They
Mhm.
interact with him and get a response from him that they're not expecting, and they walk away scratching their heads saying, "What's wrong with that kid?" So that's where Barely Visible came from. I also am fearful. Jack is really good at keeping things under wraps. Like he wants to be seen normal. He doesn't want people knowing that he's got a disability. And I feel like he's going to fly just low enough below the radar that he's never going to be granted the opportunities he could have because
Mhm.
he just wants to keep everything, the ship moving steadily ahead. And so I feel like he's going to be barely visible to the world because he's not willing to put his full self out there. So
Yeah,
there's a double meaning there.
that makes me kind of sad because, like, of course, there's a lot of heartfelt feelings for me as a mom too from you. And I love that. I love the title, just the title itself. And now that you've explained the meaning behind it, it's even more beautiful. You shared being your son's student,
Hmm.
not his expert, which I love this. That taught you the most. Can you describe a
Oh.
moment where he taught you something that changed the way you parented him?
So I'm not sure that it's an exact moment. It's a combination of multiple moments all the time. In trying to better understand him, I have gained such a greater understanding of myself. And I always say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And, it is so true with him. The older he gets, the more of myself I see in him, so much so that sometimes I'm asking myself, am I on the spectrum? And I think in seeing more of me in him, it has enabled me to be more patient, more accommodating, more understanding. So here's a specific example. Jack has extreme heat sensitivity issues. It makes, he can't bear the heat. It makes him irritable, uncomfortable, angry, whatever negative adjective you want to use. I don't like the heat either, but I know how to manage my response to it.
Mhm.
My husband loves the heat. The hotter, the better. And so one day, not too long ago, my husband and I were going somewhere. It was a warm day, beautiful day, but it was warm. We got in the car and I said, "Could we put the air on?" Like I said it in an aggressive way. "Could
Yeah.
we put the air on? I'm hot." And he said to me, "Relax, it's not that bad." And I pushed back because I was like, I deserve to be comfortable. And it was in that moment that I realized that Jack experiences every moment in time his way, which is different than my way, which is different than my husband's. And Jack's way is not wrong. For me to say, relax, it's really not that hot, invalidates him and his feelings.
Yeah.
So, like moments like that, it teaches me, he's teaching me balance, not just towards him, but towards everyone else in my life, because now I'm a little bit more accommodating towards my husband. Okay, we can roll the windows down, that kind of thing. So, really, just in interacting with him and in trying to understand him, he has taught me so much balance and needing to be patient with people and accepting of the fact that we're all different. We're
Yeah.
different.
We really are. And I know I can relate to everything you're saying in that I am a much better person,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Um, Joseph is my best teacher. My other son, Jacob, is as well. That they're just different lessons.
Hmm.
And with Joseph, they're a little more ongoing, especially when it comes to me stopping and just evaluating before I react. I'm not
Exactly.
nearly as reactive as I used to be.
Exactly. That's teaching you balance. It's this awareness that okay, I might not be feeling what he's feeling, but he's feeling something negative or he's feeling anxiety or whatever it is that he's feeling. And I might not react that way, but that's his way. And to take that away from someone is so unfair.
Yeah, it really is. And whether they're on the spectrum or whomever it is, right? Because we are all
Right.
different.
Right.
I'm curious as we're discussing this, how did his disability that nobody could see, or it took a while to see, kind of like my son Joseph, how did you advocate for him? How does that change when you realize that, like, how am I going to advocate for my son that they don't get it?
Right. I'll be honest, I did not do a good job of advocating for Jack. I mean, I wasn't knowledgeable enough to advocate. And we also were living in denial. We hadn't accepted and acknowledged that there's an issue here. There's
Uh-huh.
this force, this abstract force that we could learn about, which we didn't. I did not do a very good job of advocating until Jack reached college. And
Mm,
I think part of that was circumstantial. He was then removed from all those kids that he cared about, all the kids that he was playing sports with year after year after year, and all the kids at school that were prone to bullying. But also, college for me was a huge wake up call. We're about to run out of road. He's
mm,
going to graduate. He's going to go out into the real world, and I'm not going to be able to be there to hold his hand or make excuses or say to an employer, hey, could you give him visual instruction because that's what he understands better.
yeah.
So it was when he got to college that I had to start speaking up, not just with everyone around us, but with him and
Mhm.
teach him how to self-advocate, to
Yeah,
be able to say, I've got these limitations, but I also have these strengths. If you could do these things for me, we're going to get along just great.
I love
So,
that.
yeah, I kick myself every day for not having done it sooner. But
Yeah.
that
But
was the journey that we were on.
exactly. Know better, do better.
Exactly.
I tell myself that all the time because I think anyone who is on this parenting journey can sit there and go, wow, I could have done such a much better job in this. It's
Right.
ongoing. But then I have learned, over the years, it really is taking Maya Angelou's quote and making it super short as my mantra. Okay, Bridget, know better, do better. And then I tell my kids, I say, you know what? What did you learn and what can you teach?
Right.
And if you can answer those two
Right.
questions, rock and roll, move
Right.
on, here we go.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I think it is important for us to teach our kids, especially, like what you're talking about when you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't make decisions. I don't get to make decisions for Joseph anymore.
Right.
Because then it does get challenging for a bit. But now he does know how to advocate for himself. And we still have room to grow for that. Uh,
Hmm.
I want to just quickly insert this because I know a gentleman who's in his latter 50s that just was diagnosed several
Oh,
years
wow.
ago. And he couldn't keep a job and all the stories, that we hear. Well, now on his business card, graphic designer, I'm an autistic graphic designer.
Wow.
Puts it out there.
That's
He's kept
amazing.
a wonderful job, the longest he's ever had, and it's because he knows how to advocate for himself.
Right. I tell Jack, I say, look, this is now your decision. It's up to you whether or not you disclose your disability or try and keep it hidden. If you don't disclose it and you make a mistake, be prepared to face the consequences. If you make a mistake, it's not going to be met with understanding.
Right.
But if you disclose your disability, you're putting your honest self out there on the table. And if somebody doesn't want to deal with you, that's their loss. It's you can go in and proudly say, okay, I made this mistake, but here's why, and
Yeah.
not hiding your true self. He has nothing to be ashamed of. And as parents, we have nothing to be ashamed of. And I think finally the landscape has changed in that respect, is that it's now not unacceptable. When people weren't talking about it, it was taboo. It's like, what's wrong with that kid?
I think the more, and that's a lot of the reason why Joseph and I started this podcast years ago is because we need to have these
Right.
conversations
Absolutely.
to keep it going, right? As you know, I work with autism moms, and advice to a mom who feels like she's on edge, which I get this all the time. I can't wait to hear what you think. And she's unsure whether to step in, explain, or stay silent in the face of misunderstandings, right, about our kids' behavior. Like, what is your advice for a mom who, yeah, it's a really tense situation now? How do I step in as a parent?
I think my advice would be from the get-go, the minute you get that diagnosis, I don't care if your child is 2 years old, start from the very beginning and teach them who they are. And don't for one moment allow them to think that they are lesser for any reason. I wish I had known who Jack was when
Right.
he was younger, so I could have instilled him with confidence and ensured him that he's unique, he's capable, he's valued. And then, quite honestly, just let go of the fear of what other people think, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that your child is loved and respected and treated with the same fairness as anyone else. And when they grow up to be a well-adjusted adult because you went to bat for them, you're not going to remember that moment when a parent snickered behind your back on the sideline of a soccer game. It just, what we think is important in the present moment is so not. All that matters is our children
Yeah. Yeah.
and teaching them to be them best selves.
I love that. And I think there is a movement to start just to start talking about what strengths, like what are your strengths? And let's talk about those things because more than likely there are more strengths than
Right, right,
deficits, right?
right.
So I love that. And I agree with you. Again, know better, do better. But I think it is important. I love the quote by Temple Grandin, different, not less.
Exactly.
And that's the message I'm
Yeah,
hearing you say.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey. When you like, I reflect on it every day. Like I said, I really truly believe that divine intervention. I was not meant to have that first baby. I was meant to have this challenge, this journey, all of these mistakes so that I could learn all these lessons. It's just like you said, it has made me such a better person.
Yeah. And it is as hard as it is. I wouldn't, I mean, and I know people, and again, this is my journey I'm speaking of, nobody else's.
Mhm.
I would never change Joseph.
Me either.
I
Me
think he's a
either.
rock star,
Yeah.
and his strengths surely outweigh any of the challenges,
Right.
right?
Oh, parenting is so difficult and there's so many highs and lows.
Yeah, oh,
When
yeah.
you're parenting a child on the spectrum, they're higher and lower. But if you can be in the present moment, know that the every low is going to be replaced by an eventual high. And
Yeah.
those moments when they make you proud or they give you that hug, and every morning Jack walks out the door, love you, mom, have a good day. That's just the greatest gift in the world. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter that he's going to come home and bend my ear with the same story he bent my ear with yesterday. And like he comes home and every day is a repetitive. I could run down everything he's going to say word for word, but it's who he is, and you just have to embrace every bit of the love.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, because at the end of the day, what we talked about earlier is all we want as a mom is for our kids to be happy.
Right, absolutely.
And that looks different for every human, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the focus. And I know that speaking of the journeys and being a mom, one of the things that Joseph told me when I asked him one day, I said, Joseph, what's my life lesson? He instantly said, letting go. I went, okay, you're right, buddy, you're right. So, what advice do you have to let go of
Oh,
our expectations, right? That's
yeah. I still have expectations. I still worry that things are going to go wrong. And, I worry every day Jack's going to come home and say, I got fired, that kind of thing. But children do become adults, and at some point, you have to take your hands off the wheel and you have to let them stumble. You have to let them figure out how to navigate their life. I mean, Jack is not going to change, he's going to be who he is from now until the day he dies. I might not be here. I won't be here, And so he needs to figure it out.
Mhm.
All I can do to enable myself to let go is keep talking to him, keep giving him the skills to be confident and to self-advocate, and hope that it sticks. And we just, I know that he's going to stumble at some point, but I'll be there to pick him up. But I have to let him make those mistakes. I think every parent needs to. It's no different. It's
Mhm.
just a little bit harder
Yeah.
because it breaks your heart. They're already dealing with so much,
Mhm.
and it breaks your heart when they miss out on an opportunity or something goes wrong and they didn't know how to fix it. So it is heartbreaking, but you just have to have faith that they'll figure it out,
Yeah, and they will. Just like we do.
right?
We had to figure things out. I still have to figure things out on
Right.
as being Joseph's mom. Still figuring things out. Oh, how do I handle this? How do I handle
Right.
that? But one of the things when Joseph was explaining to me that I needed to learn how to let go, my life lesson, and he's not wrong, by the way. Um, I have learned, and he gave me the whole description of the river flowing and going with the flow of the river.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that's what he was visualizing of letting go. And so I do, I'm still working on it, but it's the awareness that as we move on this journey, letting go is part of the parenting piece. And we're good, we're working on it.
Right.
That's okay.
It is the hardest thing. It
It
really
is.
is. And I know that Jack depends on me. Like every move he makes, he consults me first. And there's that part of you as a mother, every parent wants to protect their child and shield them from adversity. And I think as mothers, we reserve the right to coddle our children and protect them and keep them out of harm's way.
Yeah, I will always do that proudly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I still make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for Jack.
Oh, I would too if Joseph were here. But when he does come home, I really try to cook it up for
Oh,
him,
that's
send
fun.
him home with whatever he needs. But
That's fun.
I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what advice for parents, like what is your advice raising our kids with challenges?
Number one, be patient. Number two, just love the HE double hockey sticks out of them.
Uh-huh.
Really, that's so many times I came down on Jack when if I had just stepped back for 2 minutes, I would have realized whatever happened, it wasn't his fault. Okay, maybe he made a poor decision in the moment, but
Yeah.
just love them because when you treat them with respect and patience, You get over those hurdles so much more quickly, and they don't walk away feeling like I'm no good. You don't want your kid feeling that way. You want them to know that yes, I am a solid person. I am valued and I made a mistake. Okay, I'll learn from this mistake. So I think it's really about patience, love.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
As long as we love and we try to be as patient as possible, and some days are better than others, I think that really is all we
right.
need.
I mean, every relationship is difficult at times,
Yeah,
every single one. You could, you go to the supermarket and you could have a bad interaction with someone. That's a relationship.
sure.
So every relationship takes effort. You don't want to bump into that person and have a bad experience. You want to say hello and, let me get that off the shelf for you. It
Yeah.
takes effort, but the effort is, oh my goodness, it's worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Yes, I agree. I'm nodding my head. If you're listening, if you're on YouTube watching, you see that I agree with everything you just said. I know that our listeners are going to want to find your book. Can you share with us, like, where can people find out more about you?
So the easiest way probably would be to go to my website, which is Kathleen Somers, 1 M Somers. From there, you can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook, or you can email me directly. Please, if I have no problem talking with anyone, the more I connect with people, it's equally as good for me as it is for that person. So please reach out if you have a question or whatever. And my book is for sale wherever, if you go on Amazon, it's there, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. If you have a favorite local bookstore, please support the local bookstores. We need them.
Yes. Again, I agree 100% with you. And that's where folks can find you. And by the way, we will provide the links for all of you that are listening or watching and make sure that you can find Kathleen because I think your message, Kathleen, is very important. And I really appreciate you sharing your work as a mom, but also as a human with all of us.
I can't thank you enough for asking me to be here to be able to share it. So thank you.
Yeah, always my honor. All right. If you enjoyed this episode of Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast, please like, please subscribe, because when you all do that, we get to reach more people who need to be part of these conversations. So keep liking, keep sharing, and I'll see you in the next episode.